We added all the common routes, but there is a problem with the user route. Since when we go to the user resource, we will see that we return first name, last name, email, and a role. A role is a admin specific thing. The influencer should not have a role. Also, on the auth controller, we also added an additional field, which is permissions. So all of these fields are admin specific fields which we don't want to add. So in order to make a difference, we have to add a new field in the database. Let me create a migration. PHP artisan make migration, add is influencer column to users table. So we will add a new column to the users table. Add is influencer column to the users table. So in this table we will add a tiny integer is influencer. Default will be 0. So by default the user won't be an influencer. On the down method we will drop the column is influencer. Now let's go to the API-PHP and we will make a change on the register API. The change will be that we won't be able to register as an admin. So this register will be registered just for the influencers, because admins can create themselves using the user controller, and the influencer should register using this route. So if we go to the auth controller now and go to the register method, here we will add a new column which is influencer, which is equal to 1. Here we add also the role ID, which shouldn't be here, but if we remove it for now it will throw an error. We will remove it in the next tutorial. Now we have the is influencer column in our model. Now let's make some changes. First, we can add a condition here for the additional field. So we'll get the resource, which is the user resource, and if the user is an influencer, it will return the resource. Otherwise, it will return the resource with the additional permissions. To highlight this is influencer here, we first need to run the migrate function and then run PHP artisan IDE models. Now this is highlighted here. Now we have to make another change in the user resource. We have to add now a condition for the role to show it here. So before we change anything, let's go to the user model, and here we will add two methods. Public function is admin, which will return this is influencer will be equal to 0. This is a bool. and we will add also is influencer, which will be equal to 1. This is also a boolean. Let's use this function also here, is influencer, and let's go to the user resource now. To add a conditional attribute on the user resource, we have to use Laravel built-in methods, which is when merge when. So when the condition is done, we will add the role. So we will do it like this. So the condition is auth user is admin. So when the user is admin, we will merge the role. Otherwise, when it's not admin, we will just return ID, first name, last name, and email. Let's see it on Postman. Here we have an admin login that gets his data. We can see that the role and the permissions are available here. Now let's register a new user called influencer and send a request. So I made a GET request here. Let me change it to post. And I created a new user called influencer. Now let's log in with that user, i@i.com. The password is 1234. So this is the token now. Now let's copy this URL here, open a new one, and add a header authorization. And let's copy this token, paste it here, bearer, we can see that we get the ID, first name, last name, and email, but we don't get the role and the permissions. So we can send the request again here. So we are using the same API endpoint, but the result is different. Now let's try to remove the role ID. Now let's remove the role ID from the users table. Let's create a migration, PHP artisan make migration, create user roles table. So we will remove the role ID and add a new table, a many-to-many relationship table with the user and the role. We won't connect directly with the role ID. So let's go create user roles table, and this table will have an ID. It will have the unsigned big integer user ID, which will be also unique, and we'll have the unsigned big integer role ID. Why the user ID is unique? Because one user has a single role. We don't want users to have multiple roles. And now let's add the foreign keys table, foreign user ID, reference ID on users. Let's do the same for the role ID. And here we will drop the user roles table. Now we are done with creating the user roles, but we also need to populate the fields here in this migration. So I will get all the users, user all, and we will seed these user roles using the role ID inside these users. So for each users as user db table user roles insert user ID is user ID, role ID is user role ID. Now this migration will create the table and seed it. Let's migrate. PHP artisan migrate. Now the table is migrated and it also seeded the user roles table. Now we are ready to drop the role ID since we already have the connection for it. Now let's create the user roles model. PHP artisan make model user role. And let's make some changes there. We will say that protected guarded ID here, and public timestamps is equal to false since we are not using the created at and updated at. Now let's go to the user controller.php, and here we will remove this role ID here and use the user role create user ID role ID request input role ID. Let's run PHP artisan IDE models. So this create can be highlighted here. So let's do the same for the update. We have to copy this code here and paste it here. Remove the role ID here. So to remove it, we have to first delete it. So user role where user ID is equal to user ID, we have to delete it. So this is for the update. We have to remove it first, then to create the new one. And the last change we have to make is to go to the user's model, and for the role here we have to remove belongs to, we have to change it to has one through. So this has one role through the user role table. Now this will become a little bit confusing, so we will add the connection with the keys and foreign keys. So the first one is user ID, then we have to connect it with the ID. So this is the user ID for the user role table, and this is ID for our user table here. Then we have to add the connection between the user role and the role. So we have to add another ID here and the role ID. So that's a long has many through configuration, but this is how it will work. Now let's go to Postman and get the current logged in user. So it worked basically the same. Now the admin role has the role attached to it. Everything will work just the same.